Hi, my name is Dr. Bobby Sura, Consultant Clinical Psychologist, Systemic and Family Psychotherapist. Today I'm in Warwick, a medieval town, and I'm doing one of my walk and talk sessions. I was thinking that we develop an identity over the years based on the stories that have been told about us, the way people have spoken to us, often in our early childhoods, the way our parents or carers took care of us, the things they said, the descriptions and labels they gave to us. For example, that you're courageous, you're strong, you're creative, you're bold, you're lovable. If we have been lucky, we've had those very positive messages, and they become part of our inner narrative. We start to internalize that story, and it starts to make us feel that we can live accordingly. We start to embody those thoughts, those feelings, those ideas, those descriptions. Essentially what Michael White and David Epstein, the narrative therapists of New Zealand, talked about as stories told becoming stories lived. Now, we may not have always been so fortunate. If we have had very negative descriptions and labels given, we've been told that we're good for nothing, will not amount to much, that we are troublesome, bothersome, that we're a burden, maybe in words or maybe in sentiments that are expressed, maybe in behaviors and attitudes and non-verbals, you know. Then we start to develop a very poor image and identity, a less than adequate sense of self. And that's problematic because, again, those stories told start to become stories lived. We internalize the narrative and it becomes a real burden in our lives. Essentially, these inner descriptions become our inner narrative. They become the way we view ourselves and the way that we think other people view us too. A lot of the anxiety, the lack of self-esteem, the depressive feelings that we may have in the world, in our lives, they're on account of these internal stories and narratives. They become almost our self-labeling, our self-critique, that chatter, that internal chatter we often talk about, the things that we say to ourselves when things aren't working out well. That's where it comes from. But there is hope, because no identity or label is fixed and irreparable. We can change the way we think and feel about ourselves. If the narratives that we were given, that we inherited, are the ones that are holding us back, then we can change those stories and those narratives. It's about changing the way we think about ourselves. We all have what we call quieter stories, stories that maybe aren't heard so often, aren't spoken so often. If we can start to focus in and tune in on even the few things, the small things that we think are positive about ourselves or that we've heard others say about us, because we often bounce those back, you know, we don't accept them, we don't necessarily absorb positive messages. We have to try a little bit harder and then amplify those stories and those messages, and that can be a very good way to help ourselves out of this stuck situation we find ourselves in. In one of the future videos, I'll talk a bit more about how we can engage in that amplification process. But for now, just consider that. Focus in on what is good. Notice what you can feel good about yourself. Whenever somebody gives you a compliment, just notice it and hold on to it. Don't let it bounce off you so readily. We don't have to accept the labels that limit us or diminish us. They've become very familiar, no doubt. But there are other aspects to ourselves, to our identity, our own self, which we can tune into and we can expand. We just have to think about what is going to be the dominant narrative of our lives. Is it going to be something that robs us of our happiness, of our peace, of our self-esteem? Or is it going to be something that bolsters us, strengthens us, replenishes us? And these are choices we can make. The key within all of this is deciding where you're going to put your power. Where are you going to put your center? Are you going to put your center outside of yourself to allow others to condition and determine who you are? Or are you going to find your center within yourself and you determine who you are, how you wish to be, how you wish to speak to yourself? Every time you register a negative thought, sometimes we call them a negative automatic thought, so anytime you notice that you are labeling yourself in a negative way or accepting somebody's negative label of you, write it down small, in a faint text, maybe in pencil, so that it doesn't have staying power. It isn't a large part of your life. And then underneath it, write in bold, in bigger writing, how you wish to feel about yourself and what you wish to think about yourself. What a loved one, somebody that cares for you, a friend might say about you, that counters that thought. That's one way to start to diminish it. These things are all possible with the right support, the right help, the right intention. Keep tuning in and I'm going to support you with this.